Hello everybody and welcome to Stewing Through 3. Opens up a mega shitload of packs in Hearthstone. My name is Stewing Through 3 and today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be doing a pack opening video for the new Knights of the Frozen Throne. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm very excited about this new X pack. You guys, your mileage may vary, to be honest. But it's something that I'm very excited about, so I figured I'd make some content in it. I plan on opening up all of my packs that I got with like the welcome bundle and the couple that I've received like from the arena events, and apparently I just received 3 more, but they haven't appeared actually. But yeah, very excited. So let's open these up and take a look. See here, Avalanche. It looks like an interesting card for Shaman. It's nice to get a little bit more board control, a little bit. Shieldblade Champion. I'm excited to try out this new Paladin style deck with all the lifesteal minions and the bubbles and all that. It's stuff that I feel like I can make work. Same thing with like the card Wicked Skeleton is actually something I had my eye on. I'm interested in playing some Priest. I've been playing a little bit of Priest lately, but nothing really spectacular here. Although the Tainted Zealot actually is something that I might put into a Divine Shield deck, depending on what it is that we're going to be looking at here. Let's keep at it. Let's keep going. What do we got? Grave Shambler, Bear Shark, hilarious. I'm very excited to put this in a deck. It's actually a very valuable card. A 3 mana 4/3 with hexproof is very good. Actually no, it's got it's not hexproof. It's got spell immunity, I think is the term for Magic. Basically it just can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. It can only be hit by stuff or AoE. Serenite Chain Gang is a better version of what's it called? Spirit Wolves. So that's pretty interesting. Shadow Ascendant, we just got one of these. Interested in this card potentially for my Silence Priest, which is pretty decent. Grave Shambler might be interesting in Rogue. There's I saw some interesting theory crafts, and of course Chillblade Champion. Very excited about that. What am I looking for? Well, I play a lot of Paladin, so I'm looking for the Uther Death Knight would be great. Octuria's Veteran is actually one that is on my list. I have a plan for a deck that I want to build for Paladin that involves the Darkshire Watcher and a couple other cards that might be interesting. And stuff like this is actually right in the vein of what it is I'm looking for. Cheap, 1 health creatures that can get a bunch of Divine Shields put onto them, and then we dump out with some late game High Burst and some high value cards. Valkyr Soul Claimer seems interesting. There's a lot of abilities that do like ping damage now in Warrior, so I'm interested in it. Of course, Necrotic Geist. Actually, I have a plan for what to do with this card in a Paladin deck. I play a lot of Paladin. I know I don't do a lot of Hearthstone stuff on the channel, but I play a lot of Paladin when I do play Hearthstone, which is pretty often. And so I'm interested in getting some of this done. This Warlock card looks interesting. Warlock seems like it's going to be odd, this X pack, and so I'm kind of interested in seeing how we can make this work. I like Warlock as a class archetype. I enjoy the sort of like fight from behind motif that Warlock has, because Warlock's a lot about taking your own garbage and then killing it in order to make better garbage. And so I'm interested in seeing it. Phantom Freebooter, Necrotic Geist, of course. We're getting a lot of repeats now, but that's fine. I'm looking for something. I want these Death Knight heroes. Obviously, they're all good. We're definitely gonna just like straight up craft the Uther if we don't get him. Breath of Sindragosa looks like it's got to be pretty strong, to be honest. Although it is random, 2 damage. It's really easy to make something that's random not actually random anymore. Dark Conviction looks really good. I can see this being useful in a couple decks, particularly Dude Paladin and Wild. If you've ever seen Wild decks, my favorite one's Dude Paladin, where you just jam your deck full of stuff that makes your Silverhand recruits better. I'm interested in that. Drain Soul's pretty decent. Deals 2 damage to a minion, heals you for that much. Powerful with spell power and things like that. Mindbreaker's interesting. If I don't play a lot of control, but if I build like a control priest or a control paladin deck, that might be something that I'm interested in the long run here. Bone Baron seems interesting. Howling Commander is good. This is a card we're going to need for the Divine Shield deck I want to build. Another Chillblade Champion. We're going to get a lot of dust probably, but that's okay. Normally I would I'm going slowly because this is how you're supposed to do these pack opening videos, basically. Ice fishing looks good, actually. Murloc Shaman has a lot of tools right now. I don't know if this is a particularly good tool for it, but we'll see. Dark Conviction looks interesting. Corpse Widow is interesting. Death Rattle Hunter coming back. Embrace Darkness is also interesting. It's basically like a terrible version of Mind Control, but it's really cheap. And you can get it off of like Lyra and stuff. So I think it has a place in existence here. Desperate Stand. This card's gonna be very useful in a Bubble Paladin. Basically, anytime something comes back to life that has Divine Shield, it comes back to life with Divine Shield. Spreading Plague, I think this card is interesting, just because it lets you, if you're fighting aggro, like this is an aggro shutdown, right? It's turn 5, so it's a little late, but basically if you have your board you're getting swarmed over, this thing would be able to fix that for you, especially if you're outnumbered. Could be interesting. Could be interesting indeed. Let's take a look-see here. I got a legendary. It's a good pack. Druid of the Swarm looks good. I saw this card when it got revealed. It can either gain Poisonous or gain 3 health and Taunt. It's a decent pack. I know that Druid's doing a lot of that right now. Spellweaver is trash. 6 mana 4/4 with spell damage 2 is bad. It might have a place depending on the kind of deck you're building, but like this might be an arena card. I'm not seeing it useful for me at least. What do we get? What's our legendary? Prince Valinar! Alright, the 4-cost one that basically gets good if you have a bunch of 4-cost cards. Might be decent in aggro. The princes are an enigma. I'm interested in trying to make them work, but figuring out which deck they go into isn't going to be the easiest thing in the universe here. Righteous Protector is a godsend for the Divine Shield deck. We're going to definitely put 2 of these when I build mine, because basically 1 mana 1/1, a 1 mana 1/1 with Taunt and Divine Shield is super overstated. Taunt and Divine Shield normally add 1 mana each, so it's interesting to see what essentially is what I consider a 3-value card for 1 that you can just dump onto the board at any time to protect yourself. Grim Necromancer might be interesting. Lots of 1/1 creatures that basically gives me the ability to give things bubbles. If you're unfamiliar with the Darkshire Watcher, or Watchman, I think is what that card is called. We can actually go take a look at that in a second. That card's very good, but it requires you to have cards with 1 health in them, basically. We've got some good ones. Fallen Sun Cleric seems like it'll be interesting. Another card, 1 HP, hitting that market that I'm looking for. Basically, the card I'm talking about is... as you can see, I've got a lot of gold, and I think I have a decent chunk of dust. I might have used a little bit of it to make a deck recently. No, I've still got like 2 grand. I've got a decent chunk of dust. We can definitely make ourselves a Paladin hero in the event we need it. But I'm talking about... sorry, I'm just wiping these out while I'm going through. I mean, obviously, Argent Protector is coming back. 2 mana 2/2 gives something a bubble is really strong. Selfless Hero, I might try to make this work depending on what we're looking at here. Just because, like, there are so many cards in this set now that, like, can do things with Divine Shield. Steward of Darkshire, this card right here. This card is the reason that I think a Divine Shield deck will work, and why I'm so hype about getting cards that have 1 HP. We're definitely going to need to make a Wicker Frame Brim Burn Bristle if we're going to do that. Bolvar, we need a Bolvar, we need Light Sorrow. We've got plenty of time to get these cards as well, so like I'm not too burnt up about it. But, and of course, Uther of the Ebon Blade. Tyrion's got to be in there. Tyrion is like the Divine Shield card. Might try to make Grime Street Protector work, and then we're going to have like Blood Knight and stuff. Blood Knight obviously being this card where it eats Divine Shields and gains +3/+3 per Divine Shield. Even dumping just 1 Divine Shield into this guy would be great, and it synergizes with Bolvar, it synergizes with a bunch of other cards. Light Sorrow it synergizes with. There's a lot of stuff. I've got my brain's been racking about it since the reveals, and so I'm not a very good deck builder normally, but in Hearthstone I've got a pretty decent thing. Wretched Tiller, I want to make this card work. I'm imagining that this deck's going to be like a very powerful control heavy deck, or like a strong mid-range Paladin deck like the classic days. What do I got? Simulacrum looks good. It's an interesting card. It costs the copy of the lowest cost minion in your hand. It's very easy to make that so that costs that copy something very powerful. Like you could copy one of your girls, what's it called, the Sorcerer's Apprentices. Copy one of those, add another one to your hand. Super good. Plague Scientist actually looks pretty decent. Rogue got a lot of cool tools this set. Which is why I think the Divine Shield deck is going to be very powerful. There's a lot of poisonous in this set. And I think that having the ability to sort of ignore it is is going to be pretty decent. Shadow Essence looks interesting. It looks interesting. Depending on what you hit with it. Hitting like a 5/5 with like a very, very decent like board power might be interesting. 5/5 with lifesteal, something like that might be interesting. Argent Crusader, or Arrogant Crusader. This card is interesting. I don't know if it's going to go into my bubble deck, just because it doesn't fit into the archetype that I'm trying to construct. But a 4-mana 5/2 that basically dumps out a 2/2 sounds interesting to me, and it seems like the kind of thing that, like, in a control matchup might be good. Even in, like, a mid-range matchup might be decent. Runeforge Haunter, interesting card. Just because, like, there are some very good rogue weapons. For instance, there's that new one that's like a kunai on chain. That one looks good. Assassin Blade, very good. Things like that. This coupled with, like, what's it called? Twilight Illusionist, I think is the name of the card. The one that makes you immune when you attack on your turn. That's pretty decent. These two things could, go well together. Warrior is a very interesting class, and so all of them have some very interesting tools. The only class I'm not super interested in playing is Hunter, and the only reason is because I didn't like Hunter when Hunter was good. So, like, Hunter's bad now, so I don't know. I just skipped right through that pack. I didn't even talk about the cards that were there. I gotta get better about that. Looks like we're getting some good stuff here. Blood Razors is an interesting card. Going back to the, that's like that card, what was it? Grim Axe or something like that from Nax, where it did like a whirlwind every time it died. That was a good one. Exploding Bloat Bat. People have really been pissing on this card, but I was thinking about this. I think like Shadow Shell Umbra might be interesting. Stitch Tracker looks good. There's a lot of small things that I feel like people are forgetting. Ultimate Infestation's an odd card that I'm interested to try to make work. 10-mana cards are normally pretty bad, but that's the first 10-mana spell to my knowledge that isn't from like a Kazakus or something. So I'm interested in seeing how that works. Tainted Zealot, this card might make it into my Divine Shield deck. We'll see. It's going to take a little bit of culling. It's going to take some refinement to figure out that deck properly. 2 Arrogant Crusaders. Looks like we got some dust for right now. What we got? Anything good? Nothing good for now. Nash, actually pretty interesting. Bone Mare, I'm interested in trying to make Bone Mare work. It's a little heavy for what I normally would like in my mid-range decks, but it's interesting. The stats alone might be pretty decent, but we'll see. I mean, I don't think it's going to be an auto-include. It's definitely not that good, but it's pretty decent. Drain Soul's good. Scalemancer's interesting because basically, like, it's a card that your opponent doesn't want to kill, and in Paladin, that's really strong. Because basically, like, if you play Scalemancer and don't kill it, I can then buff it, and then now if you kill it, now you have to kill it because it's going to kill you otherwise, but then when you do, I get an 8/8 Scaleman, right? Like, that's pretty decent. There's a couple interesting cards. I think Scalemancer might be something that goes into, like, a buff Paladin deck if I ever make another one of those. Like a Galvadon deck might be interesting, something like that. Venomancer, people are pissing on Venomancer, but then I think people forget about Defender of Argus. Giving this thing taunt and making it a 3/6 poisonous would be, like, pretty gnarly. That would be hard to get through, especially, like, again, I play a lot of Paladin. That would be very challenging to get through for Paladin. And I feel like for a lot of aggro decks, that would be a death kiln, because, like, you would just murder all your shit. Deadscale Knight, people are of mixed opinion about this. I think this card could be decent. Again, it's a 1/1 for 1 with lifesteal, which normally doesn't sound very good, but in a deck where perhaps on turn 2 I play something that gives it a bubble, does 1 damage, heals me, might be interesting. In the Murloc Paladin, this has a home, I think. It's something that might be decent, especially with, like, Rock Pool Hunter or whatever. Or if you played like what's it called? The Murloc War Leader. Could be decent. What do I got? Doomed Apprentice seems interesting. Ah, this guy, he breathes out. That's kind of cool, actually. I like the art on this gold card. Mindbreaker is an interesting card. Hero powers are disabled is really strong in certain matchups. In particular, I think it's really strong against Priest, Warlock, and Mage, and Hunter. But I feel like it's not so strong against Paladin. It's not so strong against Rogue, and it's not so strong against Druid or Warrior. I mean, it's always good, but like I feel like the Warlock, Priest, and Mage get so much mileage out of their hero powers that like this card really does disrupt that pretty good. It's got a decent body for 3. Being not able to use your own hero power is something you can plan around, basically, so might be good. Definitely going to be good going into all the Death Knight heroes have really strong hero powers, especially fucking Jaina. She's got like a really strong one. Don't get me wrong, the Paladin one's really good too, but I'm not so caught up on that right now. Sunboard Valkyr. Doomed Apprentice is interesting because it's the opposite of the Sorcerer's Apprentice. It makes their spells more expensive. It's nice to be able to interact with that a little bit. Get back those like Loetheb style fuck around with the enemy spells sort of stuff going on. Hildir Frost Rider is interesting. This is really good. There's a Warlock or there's a Shaman card that buffs frozen creatures. This could be very decent, especially if you freeze your whole board and you have like some taunts set up, and then you can like buff those taunts or get bonus stats based on the freezes and things like that. The ability to control when you're getting frozen is interesting. Strong Shell Scavenger is a weird card. It's basically Bolster, but it has body, so it makes it better than Bolster in almost every conceivable way. Bolster was bad. It was a rare card, but it was a bad rare card. And I'm interested to see if maybe this might be interesting. It might be something that you consider putting into a deck. Doomerang is great. This is a very interesting card. Another one where that combination of being able to hit somebody, then you Doomerang, then you maybe Doomerang again if you have 2 in your hand or something like that. Or you do like, it's called Blade Flurry or whatever. It could be good. Could be good. Play Dead's great. I think Death Rattle Hunter's coming back in a big way right now. And I feel like people are they're undervaluing a lot of the new tools that people are getting because that's what they do in the Hearthstone community. There aren't very many cards in the set that I don't think will have a place in places. Shadowblade looks great. This card actually does the thing I talked about with the Geist. But like the turn you play it, you get to be immune, which is great. So if you have like your Geist out on the board and like play this thing the next turn, or you play this No, you want to play them both at the same time. So like it's either a turn 7 swing, or you want to have the Geist out beforehand and then play this. This could be interesting. A 3/2 weapon is nothing to sneeze at, especially not for 3. You're almost hitting Paladin levels of weapon value there, so it's not bad. Acolyte of Agony might be interesting. Could be good with buffs. All lifesteal cards are great with taunt. I think people are really forgetting about like Defender of Argus. They're forgetting about cards like Bone Mare, using like an adapt effect to give them taunt, things like that. I feel like there's just there's a fair portion. I think that there's a fair portion of cards that might be interesting that people are underselling. Happy Ghoul actually decent. I have an idea for a deck for this with like a Paladin, and there's a Priest deck that I think would be decent with this. It's rough to put it in a deck like Shaman, but there's also like the Warlock Dream of like turn 1 Flame Imp, and then coin out the Voodoo Doctor to heal yourself, then play 2 of these motherfuckers, and then you have like a huge board, which might be interesting. Might be interesting. Let's take a look-see here. What do we got? Nothing good yet. We're still missing... We're not hitting any legendaries. Nothing, like, particularly interesting. Serenite Chain Gang. Again, just a better version of Spirit Wolves, because it doesn't lock your mana up the following turn. It happens a turn later, mind you, but essentially it doesn't destroy the turn afterward. Cobalt Scalebane, if you're making a dragon deck, it's a decent dragon. 5/5 for 5 is, in my opinion, fair stats. That's basically break-even stats for a 5-mana creature. And then it also has the effect of giving another random minion +3 attack at the end of every turn. Could be good. Interesting card to consider moving forward. Little over halfway done here. Cold Wraith is interesting. This is a card that makes a lot of like the self-freezing effects bad, but then it also makes things like Frostbolt or like Cinder Ghost's Breath and stuff like that better. It could be interesting. Could be interesting. Cryptlord looks like it could be fun too. Basically making like a suicide deck where you include like a bunch of like shitty weak creatures and then play Cryptlord and suicide them into stuff. Stuff with like poisonous and things. Corpse Raiser, I want to put this deck if I ever make like full in hero power paladin deck, because this card could win you the game by itself. Could be good. Could be good. Gavadan, Lascaladazor. Haven't gotten anything super great yet. Webweave is interesting. People are again underselling this one, but getting two 1/2 poisonous spiders, getting something that basically instantly kills something is great in almost every situation. You dump this, then you play again Defender of Argus, great card. Now you have 1/2 poisonous taunts, which is great. Burlock, hilarious. Definitely something that if I ever make a Murloc Shaman, might run it regardless, just because the ability to free somebody for 2 and get a body might actually be decent. Exploding Bloatbat, I feel like this card could be usable. 4 mana is a little meaty for my taste, but there are ways to reduce mana cost of beasts, I believe. Even just pulling it off of like a Stampede or something like that might be decent. Death Speaker, give a friendly minion immunity this turn. Super great, especially with lifesteal minions. Like actually very good with lifesteal. And then, of course, Grave Shambler's back. Spreading Plague, we talked about that one already. Phantom Freebooter is an interesting card. I don't know if it has a place in the pirate decks that we have currently, but it's an interesting card nonetheless. I think that this card actually goes well in, like, Pirate Rogue, because then, like, Pirate Rogue gets a lot of, like, meaty statted weapons. You know, you play, like, an Assassin Blade for 5, then this card, and suddenly you got, like... You're looking at, what, an Assassin Blade's like a 3/5 weapon. You're looking at a 6/8. That's pretty decent. It's hard to overcome that kind of stuff. That's a lot of value. A lot of value. There's a legendary. Let's hit it up. Let's go. Hit this epic first. Furnace Face Colossus. Another card that I think will be really good in either Rogue or Shaman. I don't think this is a great card for Warrior, though. Warriors have a tendency to have very strong, heavy-hitting weapons that have terrible bodies, so you don't get to use them very much, which is bad. Could be interesting. Could be interesting to build like a weapon deck using a lot of the cards that like buff weapons in your hand. That would be good for Warrior, things like that. Drakari Defender is an interesting card. It's a super heavy anti-aggro card that basically destroys the following turn for you. Overload 3 on turn 4 is like basically decimation, but Shamans can get away with that because if they're fighting an aggro deck, if aggro becomes very prevalent, this card could be great because then you could also combo into things like Lightning Bolt. I think Maelstrom Portal is 2 mana, but then you could like coin this out, or you could do something to reduce the cost of your spells or something like that. Could be cool. Let's see what we got. What's our legendary? It's the Malfurion Death Knight. The Malfurion Death Knight, interesting thing. Basically, when you play this card, you gain, you either get 2 Poisonous Spiders or 2 Taunt Scarabs. And then I believe that your hero power is to gain either 3 attack or 3 armor on your turn, which is really, really fucking good. Super great for, like, control-style deck. A 7 mana card that basically gives you 5 mana, gives you 2 bodies of varying kind, depending on your needs. Could be great. Turn 9 play, then you end up with a 3 attack, or you end up with 8 healing on the turn you play it. It's decent. Of course, Snow Flipper Penguin, so cute. Back with the 0 cost cards. Very excited. That's I don't normally play a lot of Druid, but I might consider it during this X pack. The thing's a little bit better. +1/+1 for each damage minion. Works great in the current Warrior archetype. Icebreaker, interesting card. Basically, you can combo this with like Burlock. 5 mana swing, that's basically Execute. That gives you a body and a weapon. That's really good. 5 mana, get a 2/2 creature, kill a creature, and gain a 1/3 weapon. That's nuts. That's pretty decent. A lot of value there. And another card that can be comboed in with, like, Furnace Goliath if you don't need it. Like, eat that, and then suddenly it's gaining 3 HP, things like that. Tainted Zealot, back again. Devour Mind's interesting. It's it's basically a super version of what Priest already does. Like, they steal 1 card or 2 cards at a time. This is 3 cards, and you just add them to your hand. Like, Priest has always been good at thievery, and they've gotten a lot better at it during this X-Pack, don't get me wrong. But, it's interesting to see what they end up with. Night Howler is decent, especially if you take, like, Ping Warrior, which is a thing, right? Like, I know that there's going to be Ping Warrior's going to be a thing, where you're doing, like, 1 chip of damage every round, and it's doing something on the board when it happens. Night Howler find a place in that deck. I feel like it's going to be in there with, like, Kurobashi Berserker, and, what's the other one? The one that's like a 2/4, whenever anything takes damage, it gains like an attack or something like that. Which is like already a card that's like always in things. Teskar Fisherman is interesting. People were pissing on this card a lot, but essentially if you're playing Shaman, this card is better intrinsically in every single way than using your hero power to try to fish for a spell power totem. If you're playing anti-aggro, it's basically the same thing as playing a totem, except that you're guaranteed to get spell power on something, and you get a better body that can actually do something the following turn that doesn't just sit there like a block. This card's really good, in my opinion. I feel like there are uses for it. I feel like if you're playing a Shaman deck, Shamans always want to try to fish for that spell power so that they can get their Maelstrom Portal to be stronger, so that they can get things like Frost Shock or Lava Burst or Lightning Bolt to be better. I think there's a place for this. Wretched Tiller's weird. It basically does damage whenever it attacks. It's like Leopard Gnome. In the Divine Shield deck, this card could be beautiful. Because if you gave this thing a bubble, removing it would be difficult, and since Paladins have a curved out ability to give stuff bubbles, I feel like this card is interesting for Paladin. It could be interesting for things like Warrior as well. It could be interesting for things like, in several different cases. I feel like we're in a decent place right now. Open up the next one. We'll get into it. Let's go. What do we got? An epic, huh? Light Sorrow. Sweet. We got one of our tools that we need. Definitely going to put this in the bubble deck. Probably only on one of. 4 mana, 1/4. Native is, like, kind of bad. But if we're running a Divine Shield deck, this is the kind of card that, like, you can combo in with, like, a Blood Knight. Like, the dream scenario is that you have a board that you do Stand Against the Darkness with a Darkshire Warden on it. And then, basically, like, and then you basically have, like, 5 creatures on the board with Divine Shield. You play this card, you play Blood Knight, all 5 of those go away. Blood Knight's huge, this thing's huge. Suddenly you're rolling with, like, a 6/4 weapon. That's crazy. They smack something for 5, and it's like having Ashbringer, but on drugs. Like, that's awesome. Something interesting to think about. Corpse Widow, again, interesting card. Sunborn Valakir, I'm not sold on. It's a little heavy for what it does, but, I don't know. I'm sure it'll be great in Arena. I can tell you that for free. Just keeping bodies in Arena is, like, really important a lot of the time. Runeforge Haunter, interesting. Again, we've seen a lot of duplicates now. Blood Razor is one of the cards that I think will make Ping Warrior come back. It's definitely going to make Wild weird, because there's now a lot more activators for your Grim Patrons. A lot more activators, and there are a lot more better activators for Grim Patron now. So, something interesting. Spirit Lash, good card. Interesting idea, again. Basically, pings a dude for 2. You get healed for it. Could be good. It'd be good to get it off of Lyra. It's pretty cheap. If you add out both your Radiant Elementals, make it work, that kind of stuff. Howling Commander, happy to have that. Definitely, I don't know if we're going to put 2 in. We're probably going to start with 2 in the deck and see how it works out. Being able to draw out Divine Shield minions is decent. Especially, like, the ones that have Divine Shield on them natively are decent. Blackguard, interesting card. Not sure how good this is going to be, but I can see maybe somewhere we can, like, maneuver with it a little bit, see if we can make it play out. Desperate Stand, happy to have it again. Everything else we've seen before. What else we got in here? Daddy needs a new pair of shoes, guys. Burlock. Shadowblade's great. Keening Banshee's weird. Not sure if I'm sold on this. It's basically, it's a lot like, what's it called? Fell Reaver, basically, where you play it for high value, and then, like, it punishes you the longer it's on the board. Because essentially you mill the top 3 cards of your deck every time you play something after you play this card. But a 5/5 body for 4 is, like, pretty decent. I don't know if it's decent enough to warrant the drawback. Might be good in Arena. Might see it a lot in Arena. We'll see. Arena's pretty obsessed with just, like, having big bodies. Just having shit on the board that's, like, nice is good. Unwilling Sacrifice is a very interesting card, and I'm very interested to see if I can make this work in a Warlock deck. There's a lot of Warlock cards that generate shitty 1/1 minions, and this card would make very good use of that, bringing back things like Imp Caller, bringing back things like what's it called, Dark Ritual, stuff like that. Lots of ways to do that. Playing a Death Rattle minion and just like murdering your Death Rattle minion to make that happen. Warlocks have a tendency to have very bad single target removal, and having something is nice. Play Dead, good card again. Breath of Sindragosa back again. Starting to get towards the end of my packs here, but we'll see. And then I will take some time off camera to build a deck or two, see if what we can make. Bone Drake's interesting. It's just more dragons. The game doesn't have enough dragons as is, and a lot of the dragons that were good got removed when Blackrock Mountain got rotated out. So it's nice to have something that's back again to like perhaps work with that a little bit. Now, despite Historian gets a lot of value out of this. A lot of the Dragon Synergy cards get a lot of value out of that. You could pull out some like very powerful shit with that card as well. You pull out like a Deathwing, pull out like any of the big 9-drop motherfuckers. Anything like that would be good. Howl Fiend I'm not sold on. It's too easy for this to like seriously like screw the pooch for you. Discard's always been a weird mechanic. It's one that I'm interested in trying to do. If you could reduce your hand size down to, like, 3 cards that all could be discarded, like 2 Silverware Golems and, like, the Bug Lady, this card might actually be great, because then you can just, like, ping it a whole bunch, slam it into stuff, and try to, like, make it work like that. Could be good. Not sure if it'll be good, but, more tools for discard, I guess. I tried to make discard work. Just couldn't quite get it to go. Shallow Gravedigger, super great. I think this card's underrated. 3 mana, 3/1 that gives you another minion back, basically. Could be great. There's a lot of very powerful Death Rattles in the game right now. And this card could be very powerful. Works well inside of my Divine Shield archetype deck that I'm building. Could be fun to do. But we will see. Necrotic Geist Frost Clone again. Skelemancer. I'm pretty sold on Skelemancer. I think it could be decent. Honest to God, I think it can be decent. Oh, it looks like we got ourselves a legendary. What do we got? Phantom Freebooter again. What do we got? It's the Anduin one. The Anduin one's interesting. Basically, it nukes anything powerful, and then their heal is, like, jacked up to 1,000, I think, or it does damage now. It does, like, 3 damage. Like, it's a 3 damage ping, which is fucking crazy. I'm interested in this card. I'm interested in this priest archetype we have going on, where there's, like, lots of potential for, like, high damage priest plays. I've been playing a lot of priest lately, and the priest deck I have doesn't have a secondary win condition. That card could be that secondary win condition I've been missing. Things like that. And, of course, we have another Corpse Raiser. Very good card. Happy to have it. Interested in Gravedigger, but I'm not sure if we're going to be using that right now. We might use Necrotic Geist, but not in the kind of deck that I'm going to build for right now. So that's my packs. I might open up some more between the videos here to see if maybe I can maybe yank out some stuff to, like, build a decent deck with. But when we come back, we're going to be doing the solo adventure for the Frozen Throne. We're going to be doing this one. We're going to be doing the beginning of Ice Crown, basically. We'll do the prologue, obviously, then we'll do week 1, and then we'll have to wait for the other weeks and stuff. But... All right, Arthas, no problem. Basically, that's my plan. It'll be interesting. Very excited to do it. We get some sort of legendary out of it. I bet you it's the Arthas legendary. But with that, that's going to do it for this episode. So thank you all so much for watching. If you guys have ideas for decks or things that maybe I should be building out of this set, let me know in the comments down below. Always wanted to try out something once. I have a couple ideas for some decks that I want to build. But if you guys have anything, let me know. With that, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye!